New York Fashion Week has long been hailed as one of the vessels of the future of men's and women's fashion. Its exclusivity factor brought an allure to it that's unmatched. And living here in New York, it was always evident when Fashion Week was going crazy. The city was always bustling. Everybody would show out. The entire city would dress up, whether they were attending or not. Artists, models, celebrities, just the regular locals, everybody was dressing up and everybody was in the same space at the same time with some of the best fits, the most exciting new fashions, whether they were trendy or not, and everybody just seemed to have so much fun. The city felt alive. We were given a glimpse into the future of what fashion was going to be. Buyers would go to curate their latest collections, and it was really such a talking point amongst people even after it happened months later. New York Fashion Week was one of the most exciting events of the year, and then things kind of changed. I think we can all agree that New York Fashion Week is not what it used to be, and today this video is really going to focus on New York Fashion Week, not necessarily London, Milan, Paris, but really just New York Fashion Week, because having been here my whole life, I've been seeing this shift for a very long time. And this video is going to be a little bit more straightforward. It's going to be shorter, but much more to the point. And I know that not necessarily all of my viewers are going to like this video, but this is a video that I've really wanted to make for a long time. And this is just something that I've been feeling for years and years now. Ever since I was in fashion school and given a glimpse of what was going on in the industry and just seeing the shifts as they were happening while I was learning everything on the business side, I soon began to realize just how quickly social media, as well as the changed the entire industry. And the first thing that I kind of want to start off with is that Fashion Week never really changed all that much since it's been popularized in modern culture. And the changes that they did make were not really good. They didn't work. Designers, brands, and organizers at the fashion events just clearly made so many bad decisions. And I'm not saying that every show is completely dead, and I'm not saying that the event is completely dead in and of itself. Maybe the title is a bit of a hyperbole, but you definitely notice a shift. And to be honest, the runway show really is kind of dying at that grand scale. I mean, some of these shows cost upwards of $100,000, and that's on the cheap end. And that's not even including the cost of these special made garments that most people really aren't even gonna buy. At the end of the day, Fashion Week in modern culture has always been meant as a spectacle. It's always been for entertainment. Recently, I kind of started equating it to going out to seeing a play. It's a performance, and if you don't have good actors, if you don't have a strong message, the performance isn't gonna go well. If you don't have a strong set or a strong location or strong organizers, the performance is not going to go well. And we've been seeing the quality of these shows really just go downhill as many brands and designers start to cut costs because of the higher prices that we're seeing in New York. We kind of shot our own foot in a sense, because now we're not having as many celebrities, as many designers, as many people come into the city because of this price issue and how expensive it is to make these runway shows happen. And at the same time, we're having designers put up terrible performances in their runway shows because they're hiring influencers as opposed to professional models, which I'm not gonna lie, it really angers me, because having been in the modeling industry and having a lot of friends in the modeling industry, modeling is so much work. It's not easy. I don't care who says that it's easy. If you've never modeled before, you literally have no say. The workouts that these people go through, the treatments, the psychological issues, especially for women, because women in the industry are treated so much harder than men, quite frankly, it really is unfair. And the thing is, for these models to go through all of that just to even get a glimpse of a shot of a runway show, just for them to pick an influencer or a rapper or a celebrity to walk the show when they've never trained before in their life, that really stings, and that really just irks me. But the point being is that not only are you taking jobs away from actual professionals, but you're settling for subpar modeling because you want that exposure. It just doesn't work. It cheapens the brand, it cheapens the look, it cheapens the clothes. It makes me not even interested in who you are. And the thing is too, when you're on the runway, from a branding perspective, your models are going to speak as towards what your brand message is trying to convey. And if you really don't do careful due diligence with selecting your models, your brand message is going to be skewed. And for what? Just a little bit of a shock factor? It really doesn't work that way, and it's really, quite frankly, just kind of sickening. Another reason why I feel like Fashion Week is not what it was is the complete downsizing of the events as a whole. At at least the actual private events with higher tier designers. I mean, I remember when Fashion Week was at the Lincoln Center and sponsored by Mercedes. Not only did Mercedes relinquish the sponsorship title, completely getting rid of Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, but moving from the Lincoln Center, which is a huge venue that has so many different buildings that can accommodate such a large amount of fashion shows as well as people. Spring Studios is cool, but it's very linear. It's also a lot smaller, and I believe they've been using Spring Studios since 2016. I could be wrong about that. I'm almost certain though in 2015 they actually moved from Lincoln Center. So we're seeing a complete downsize of the events as a whole due to the sponsorships being pulled and due to the relocation of the events themselves. And don't get me wrong, they're still trying to hold on to Fashion Week, and I mean, it's not like they're gonna die tomorrow. Granted, Ralph Lauren after 4 years finally came back, but the fact that a brand like Ralph Lauren has been gone for 4 years really just kind of tells you something. And kind of going back to the exclusivity factor, when you really break down what the true allure of Fashion Week was in modern culture, it was the exclusivity factor. It was, wow, will I ever get in? Will I ever get to see this in person? From the modeling perspective, will I ever be able to walk these shows? But these days, almost anyone can put up their own runway show wherever, even within close vicinity of the main event fashion shows. And now in New York, living here, you're seeing everybody throw up a fashion show. You're seeing some of the worst collections ever. And granted, you're seeing some of the best collections ever too from actual artists who just don't have that rapport, they don't have the name, they don't have the finances, which I do think is good, but it's so clouded and overshadowed by just how bad most of these shows can really be. And it's sad because some of these people really are so talented, and it's very difficult to plan one of these yourself, especially when using so many models and making all the pieces yourself. For someone to actually pull something like this off is so difficult, and it takes a special skill that we really have to respect. But unfortunately, it's clouded by just a bunch of bullshit. I mean, I've literally seen countless runway shows of brands that all they have is screen printed hoodies and graphic tees. I'm not saying a screen printed hoodie or graphic tee is bad, but you don't need a runway show for it. We don't need to see a whole show of just this. If you really want to promote, at the end of the day, having a runway show is not for that type of brand. You haven't cultivated a message yet, and it's so much of a smarter marketing move to actually just invest in photography, invest in your models, figure out what your brand message is, figure out your brand colors, invest in your website, invest in your presence, because that is going to drive more sales and more brand recognition than having a runway show in the middle of some random venue that you paid for in New York and have a couple of people you went to high school with attend. And that might be a hard pill to swallow, but I'm sorry, it's the truth. At the end of the day, we're starting to see that runway shows really just don't even kind of link or connect to buying patterns for the consumer anymore. They're becoming more for theatrics than anything else, which sucks because the models are so much worse and all that other stuff that I talked about. But at the end of the day, with social media, it's now easier than ever for brands to market to their consumer, sell their own product, and really sell a brand message, because you don't need to be in 5 different stores anymore. You don't need to sell your collection to the buyer of Bergdorf Goodman. You don't need to sell the collection to the buyer of Bloomingdale's. You don't need to be in Saks Fifth. You don't need to be in any of these places, because you can literally just sell online directly to the consumer. The brand makes more money because now there's no middleman, and you're able to invest that, what would be $100,000 for a runway show, into a marketing campaign like a really dope photo shoot, a lookbook, or a video shoot that would really show off the actual garments that the consumer is going to purchase. Brands back in the day depended on the buyer, and now the buyer has less strength than they ever have, which I think honestly is a very good thing, because now brands can have control over their garments. We're seeing more exciting garments than ever, and we're seeing amazing branding that we never would have seen. I'm talking brands like Story MFG, for example, brands like 18 East that have these really strong branding materials. Their garments are amazing. I mean, Drake's Diary, these are brands that have so much strength and power in their branding that they don't need to do a runway show. They don't need a buyer, and their consumer base is so loyal to them because now they can literally just follow them on Instagram and connect with the brand easier than they ever could. The fashion industry is completely changed, and I don't think Fashion Week is necessarily 100% dead yet, but I think that the fashion landscape is honestly just starting to kind of outgrow the runway show and outgrow Fashion Week as a whole. It's the sad truth, but if we don't do something to change to make it exciting, I think we're gonna start to see a decline real quick. And this is a discussion that I've really been holding on to for a very long time. And listen, to be honest, some of the stuff that I say might be wrong. If it is, prove me wrong, let me know, because it really has kind of been discouraging in the fashion industry, especially as a designer and a buyer myself. And I mean, if there's any any inaccuracies or anything like that, feel free to let me know, but the general idea is there, and you guys, I know, definitely get what I'm saying. The fashion industry has changed, and Fashion Week has largely became the same other than changes that just don't work. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you sticking to the end of the video, especially if this really wasn't your thing, because I know this is more deeper industry stuff than more topical stuff, and I know a lot of my viewers are just guys that like clothes but don't necessarily care about fashion. But like I said, I don't want to be like every other channel. I want to talk about different things, and Fashion Week was coming up and I just thought I would talk about it and my true feelings behind what's going on. But anyways, back to our regularly scheduled program coming next week, next Saturday. Y'all know how it goes. So with that being said, thank you guys again, and I'll see you next week.